Hello everyone and welcome back to another Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak build video. I am Grayson the Bard, and today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be revisiting and updating a build that I've done in a previous video, namely the Foray hunting horn build that I did back before Title Update 1 dropped. A lot has changed for status attack builds since Title Update 1 and Title Update 2, and have introduced a lot of new skills that are really fun to play around with, especially with poison. So I wanted to take a look at my Foray hunting horn build, make a few updates, and see how it played. With the release of Title Update 1 and 2, we got two powerful new additions to status builds through the Gold Rathian and Risen Chameleos armor. Gold Wrath gear gives us status trigger, which we went in depth on in the Blast Hammer video we did, but for those of you who haven't seen it, it allows you to temporarily proc status with every hit of your weapon after you perform a perfect dodge through an attack. Risen Chameleos gives us build-up boost, which at max level gives you a whopping 20% increase to attack power when you hit with an attack that procs a status. With how status procs normally work, this means that you normally get a 20% attack boost on 1/3 of your attacks, or about 33%, which is good but nothing to really write home about. When you combine this with status trigger though, you get that 20% boost on everything as long as you're good at timing your dodges. These skills play really nicely together, and thankfully they're pretty easy to get on a single armor set. But before I go into the updated version of the set, I want to talk a little bit about the previous build that I did. I'm not going to be going into too much detail about that build. I already did a video on it, and if you have not seen it, I would highly recommend taking a look at that video before you continue on, just so you know what I'm comparing to what. For ease of comparison, however, I will be showing screenshots with comparisons between the two armor sets, just so you can have that visual as well. Now, onto the updated build. The upgraded Foray hunting horn build is definitely more endgame focused set, as it only uses pieces from two of the Title Update monsters. The set uses the Gold Rathian helmet and waist, and the Risen Chameleos chest, arms, and legs. With how well the unique skills from both of these armors work, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that with this armor setup, you get the max level of both of them. Not only status trigger and build-up boost, but you also get max level Foray and 4 levels of evade extender, which make it easier for you to take advantage of status trigger. Capcom definitely knew what they were doing and wanted these skills to be paired together, and as somebody who, as you have no doubt noticed by now, is a glutton for status, I thank them. The rest of the skills on the armor out the gate are really solid too. You end up not only with all of those, but you also get 2 levels of burst, which is the same skill as Chain Crit, but they renamed it in Title Update 2, as well as a level of Wirebug Whisperer, which is really nice on Hunting Horn because of how much you end up using the Silkbind Shockwave and the Sonic Bloom and a lot of other Silkbind intensive moves, so it's nice to be able to have that third Wirebug last a little bit longer. And again, this is all out the gate with just the armor. All of the augmenting I have done with this armor has so far only increased defense and added a single level 1 slot, so there aren't any additional skills on here. This is just what you get. So for status builds, this is gonna, I think, be the template. The only major downside that I see with this build right now is that the slots are a little bit more restrictive than they are on my previous Foray build. There's a lot more level 1 slots than anything else, but there is still a very nice spread of level 4s, 3s, and 2s that we can take good advantage of. For now, I'm still using the Genie's Ocarina as the weapon because it still has the highest poison and I really like it. I like using the Chameleos stuff, and this is still an anti-Kushala weapon, which I'm hoping I'm going to be able to put into use when they eventually release Risen Kushala. That thing will not stand a chance. But there's now some other fun options you can play around with. As always, there is the Fungus Axe, there is the Lucentnar Gakuga hunting horn, which I have been interested in trying out. It's got a lot less poison on it, but it does have better raw damage, more affinity, and it has more offensive songs on it. But the hunting horn I'm most interested in playing around with is the Flaming Espinas hunting horn. It has lower raw damage than any of the others that I've listed, but it does both fire and poison damage, which could result in some nice hunts against the right monsters. Unfortunately, I used my only Flaming Espinas mantle on the Greatsword for my next build video, so trying out the horn will have to wait. So as I'm going through the decorations that I put on, I'm going to have my original build over on the left, and I'll have the new build over on the right for sake of comparison. So once everything is all decorated out, the build actually ends up looking pretty nice. What I have is I have attack boost 7, again 3 of that is coming from my talisman, which gives me attack boost 3 and a 3 slot, defense boost 5 from a level 4 decoration, which I might swap out, I'm not sure, but I like having that additional defense. Evade window maxed, Chameleos Blessing maxed, Defiance at level 4 for the additional roar and wind protection, which is always good. Poison attack 3, Foray 3, status trigger 3, build up boost 3, handicraft 2, evade extender 2, burst 2, horn maestro, speed sharpening, flinch free, and wirebug whisperer all at 1. And then, as you can see, no augmentations right now. What's really interesting though is that when you look at the overall stats of my two builds side to side, you will see that while the new build definitely has higher defense, the old build has a little bit more of an edge on the raw damage. So a lot of this build is really hinging on the combination of status trigger and build up boost, pushing it over what the original build could do. And in order to see if that actually happens, we're going to head over to the training dummy to see some actual numbers. Alright, so here in the training area, I am going to be showing off the first original Foray build that I did first, and then moving over to the new build. I'm going to try and keep everything as consistent as I can. I'm going to try and hit the same place on the dummy. I'm going to have it doing the same things so that it is easy to get an accurate measurement, but know that there may be some wiggle room because I'm not perfect. So taking a look at the original build, we can see that a lot of the times our normal hits are doing high hundreds of damage, most of the time knocking on 200, but never quite getting past that. And our performance shockwave attacks are hitting for about 135 each time, which will remain consistent no matter what monster we're facing. There's a good noticeable difference when the monster is poisoned and Foray kicks in, which takes our hits from around the 170-180 range to 180-190. Now, assuming that the skills work as written, we should see much bigger numbers when we swap over to the upgraded build. And sure enough, the updated build performs amazingly. Even before the monster is poisoned and Foray kicks in, our attacks are already hitting for over 200 damage because of build-up boost, and with status trigger active, the dummy is poisoned much faster than in the original build. One thing to note, however, is that our shockwaves are unaffected by build-up boost, and as a result are still going to be hitting for about 135 damage a pop. I didn't test it in this footage, but I can also confirm that the pop from Sonic Bloom is also unaffected. But the overall raw increase in damage from your hits is going to make up for that, I think. And as I'm watching this footage back and recording this voiceover, I'm actually thinking that because of that increase in the raw attack, maybe the Lucent Nargacuga Horn is the way to go, but that will require a little more testing, and I want to get this video out. If y'all have played around with the Lucent Horn and feel like it does the same thing, but more effectively, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about it. So, in terms of numbers, the new and improved build is definitely the way to go, but as we all know, that's not always the only thing you need to keep in mind when you're talking about a Monster Hunter build. The damage from the combined use of status trigger and build-up boost is definitely nice and will really add up as long as you're able to use it effectively, but there's the rub. It's easy to dodge through the training dummy's projectile and activate status trigger, but not as easy when you're fighting a real monster that is actually throwing attacks at you, especially in the end game where things can easily one-shot you if you're not careful, or if you're not paying close enough attention to your health and you take a hit that you really shouldn't have. The more you fight a monster and get used to its tells, the easier it will get, but until then you might not have as much uptime on status trigger and therefore build-up boost, which is going to decrease your damage once more. Depending on your playstyle and your comfort level with a given monster, you may want to stick with a version of the original Foray build just for the consistency. But at the end of the day, that's your call to make and not mine. That's where I'm going to wrap things up for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like my videos and my builds and want to see more like them, please like and subscribe, and if you have any thoughts on the build or questions you want to ask, please let me know in the comments. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on the builds and a lot of good questions over my time making these, and I always love interacting with you guys and seeing what other hunters do with these builds. I mentioned earlier that my next video is going to be on Greatsword, so be on the lookout for that in the coming weeks. Thank you all again, and until next time, I'll see you next time.